What's up everybody, I'm Jason and welcome back. So this time I'm going to talk about something a little different from what I'm usually talking about, and that's tools. So obviously photography isn't carpentry or watchmaking or machining or something like that, and you can get away without having a lot by way of tools in your bag. That said, I've always found it useful to have something that covers the nuts and bolts, pun intended, of what I may run into with my tripod, C-stands, cameras, and whatnot in the field. So you could call this my EDC photography toolkit, I guess. And it's really just three tools: a multi-tool, a really right stuff MTX tool, and a flashlight. So first off, the multi-tool. Mine's a 20-year-old Gerber. I think the current equivalent to it is the Multiplier 400 Compact Sport, but honestly, the brand of multi-tool doesn't really matter. What's important, at least to me, is that there's a needle nose plier with a wire cutter, a knife, and a big flathead screwdriver. Now, the big flathead screwdriver might seem like a bit of an oddity, but I'm coming across more and more lens and camera plates these days that use a slotted mounting bolt that doesn't also have a provision for either a 5/32 hex socket or a handle for, to grab and tighten with your fingers. Now, I think the intent with these kind of things is that you can use a coin or your keys to tighten the bolt, but the reality is I don't really carry coins an awful lot anymore. I don't usually end up having coins an awful lot anymore, and my keys are just the wrong size for these kinds of bolts anyway. The second tool I carry is the Really Right Stuff MTX tool, and this one for me is kind of the big one. Now, I admit it is a bit expensive for an interchangeable bit screwdriver at $60, and you can go to a hardware store and get a precision screwdriver with interchangeable bits for like $10. But what Really Right Stuff has done with the MTX tool that makes it invaluable to me is ensure that it has both all of the bits, or the bits that you will need to cover the screws you find in the industry, and in some cases the correct bits for the screws that you will find in the industry. So what about multi-tools with interchangeable bits then? Well, that can work if you find one with the right bits for your needs. The problem, at least that I've seen, is that most either don't have all the sizes you need, or more importantly, don't have the right bits for camera gear, and this is very specific to the JIS Crosspoint bits. So anyway, the MTX tool comes with 22 bits from the factory and a stubby 5/32 Allen key, of which you can either keep 10 bits and the Allen key in the handle, or 12 bits. Now, all the bits that you're not using fit in a plastic carrier that you can keep with you or stick in a drawer somewhere so you don't lose them. Now, on my MTX tool, the first thing I did was ditch the 5/32 hex key. I have one in my camera's L plate if I need it, but I also carry a 5/32 bit in the handle anyway, so it's covered anyway. Now, that gives me room for 12 bits, and these are the 12 bits that I carry in my MTX tool and why and what they're useful for. So first up, as a matter of general utility, I carry all of the flat and JIS Crosspoint bits. So this is the number 0 and number 2 flat, and the 00, 0, and 1 JIS sizes. Now, if you're not familiar with JIS Crosspoint screws, they're the ones that look like Phillips head screws on your camera gear. Only they're not Phillips head screws. And the simple truth is that forcing a Phillips head bit into them can damage the head of the screw, which you probably don't want to do when it's a screw in your camera. Now, on the other hand, JIS drivers will work with Phillips head screws, though they don't fit quite as tightly as a Phillips head bit does, but they can be used. In any event, these bits are one of the major points that differentiate the MTX tool from those cheap hardware store precision screwdrivers. Those are Phillips, these are JIS. Next is a T25 Torx bit. Now, this is kind of specific, to some extent for me. My main tripod is an older Gitzo Systematic that uses a T25 Torx bolt for both the top plate and the leg joints, so I carry one in case I need to change out top plates, tighten things down, etc. So that brings me to the hex head bits, of which I carry the most by far. And starting with the smallest, I carry a 2mm hex. This is used by Small Rig for their cable clamp on their camera cages, and in fact, this is the sort of impetus that started this whole video. I just got one of their cages. I had to redo my MTX tools loadout, hence why I'm talking about it. Next up is a 2.5mm hex key, which I've found is used for a lot of safety stop screws on Arca Swiss style lens and camera plates, be them from higher end brands like Really Right Stuff or Wimberley, or from the generic stuff that you find on Amazon. Stepping up again is a 3mm hex key, and in general this seems to be fairly rare for camera gear. However, Edelkrone does use it on their sliders, and since I use one of their sliders, I have one of these in my toolkit. Next up is a 5/32 inch bit, and this is the standard bit for 1/4 bolts across the field. So camera lens plates, pretty much anything that bolts to a thing like a small rig cage or a cheese plate with a 1/4 bolt, all are going to use this bit. Second to last is a 3/16 inch bit. Now, again, this is somewhat specific, but if you work with a lot of pro grip gear, especially C-stands, this is the driver that you need for the 3/8/16 set screws that you'll find all over those. Finally, the last bit is a 7/32 inch hex driver, and this is the standard size for a 3/8/16 bolt. So again, useful for things that mount to cheese plates and the like. I have one in my kit because I have a home-built safety plate that goes on my Gitzo tripod, and it uses a 3/8/16 bolt to secure it to the hook mount on the systematic flat plate. So that's it for the tools part of this video. The MTX tool pretty much covers every screw that I'm likely to encounter in at least my kit, and probably most other people's kits if I have to help somebody out in the field. And the multi-tool can basically grab, twist, cut, and crimp pretty much everything else. So the final thing I said I carry is a flashlight. And the two lights I personally use are Phoenix's LD12 and a 2015 era Black Diamond Storm headlamp. Now, a note on the headlamp, normally I don't bother carrying it, but if I'm going to be working outside at night, or I know I'm going to need to use both hands and a flashlight, then the headlamp goes in the bag because it's just so much easier than holding a flashlight in your mouth for any length of time. Now, the reality is that, like the multi-tool, the brand of flashlight you have or use doesn't really matter. That said, there are 3 things I recommend looking for when you're buying a flashlight, and these are, so first off is the ability to control the brightness. Sometimes you just don't need 10,000 candle power, and other times you maybe do. Reality is that if you have too bright of a flashlight, in some circumstances it's actually counterproductive because it blinds you and makes it harder for you to see what you're doing, especially if you're working on something up close and personal. So controlling brightness is a good thing to have. Second is a light that uses or can use standard batteries, so AA's or AAA's. Now, yes, I know, larger lithium-ion rechargeables can deliver far more power, far better light, brighter lights, and run things for longer. The problem that I have with them is, and I'm not against them per se, but the problem that I have with them is that when they die, it's way harder to find a replacement on set or in the field. You can't just walk into a convenience store and buy a pack of AA's and stick one in your flashlight and have a working flashlight. You can't bum one off of somebody else. And if you're still using AA powered flashes for still photography, you can't just borrow one from your flash. The final thing I look for is either a red LED option or a red filter for working outside and at night. And the simple reality is that red light has a much smaller impact on the chemical processes that are needed to have fully adapted dark vision. And when you're doing either astrophotography or night landscape work, especially if there are other people in the area, photographers, astronomers, whatever, you really need to have a red light. In fact, it's even better if for not hurting your dark adaptation as well. So that's my photo gear EDC toolkit. Did I miss something that you find invaluable, a cool tool perhaps? If so, leave a comment and let me know what your favorite or most invaluable tool is. I'd love to know. I'm always looking for new toys. So if you found this useful or at least a bit interesting, let me know by hitting that like button. If this kind of thing seems like it might be your kind of thing, then please consider subscribing if you're not already. Finally, if you know someone that might find this useful, help them and me and share it with them. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.